Mason Bannavong seemed to have it all: a college degree, peak physical fitness, and a dream job in the bustling city of Dallas. But life took a sudden turn, leaving him broke, unemployed, and back in his hometown of Amarillo, Texas. Hitting rock bottom might have seemed like the end, but for Mason, it became the solid foundation he needed to rebuild upon. With the support of his family, newfound confidence, and an enduring passion for fitness, he carved out a name for himself in the fitness and powerlifting communities. Now, as a personal trainer, Mason empowers others to strengthen not just their bodies, but their minds and spirits.
I'm actually going to Thailand. I signed up for a competition called the High Rocks.
Oh,
And
Wow, okay.
yeah, I'm going to. It's in Bangkok, and I just pulled the trigger. I was like, I've never been, so hey, why not? So
is that a lifting competition?
it's a cross training competition. It's
Oh.
more like a hybrid athlete kind of thing, right? So it's lots of running and sled pushing and stuff like that. But
When
yeah,
is that? When is that?
May 24th is the day. So
Okay.
yeah, so I'm just gonna plan on that and
Then
training for it.
you'll do that and then do some vacation time out there?
It's like, I mean, honestly, like 2 days extra. That's really it.
Oh, shit.
And then we're coming back, and then in December, it's gonna be the first time I'm gonna take my parents. I'm gonna take them, and they haven't been home since they left.
Wow.
So
Oh,
that's
to
my that's
Thailand
kind
and
of like
Laos, or what? Both?
again.
Are you going to Laos and Thailand in December?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna take. That's the first time that they've been back, and I wanted to do that as a gift to them as I've gotten older. It's always been like a life dream is to take my parents back home just to see it, and we're gonna make it happen this
Welcome to another
December. So
episode of C4 Podcast, Southeast Asian Athlete Achievement Through Adversity. My name is Coach Yandetka. I am here with my co-host, John Messina. If you guys haven't already, please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, C4 Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Lao American Sports. Visit us on our website, LaoAmericanSports.com. If you know somebody that you would think would be able to, come on and share their story at, about adversity, about triumph, please send us a message and, let us know so we can keep sharing these stories, man. This is really what the podcast is all about. It's just about telling our stories, and we all have them. All right. We all have stories, man. And I think, and especially us Southeast Asian, athletes or, we have a lot of great stories to tell, especially about overcoming adversity. So, all right. So without further ado, I want to pass it over to John. He's going to introduce our guest for tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited about today's guest. He is Mason Bannavong, coming to us out of Amarillo, Texas, the home to the great Lovan fam, episode 4. Go back and listen to that one if you have not already. Mason is a power lifter, a personal trainer, and he's the host of the Under the Bar podcast. So he's in this space. So we wanted to have him on to talk about all of that. So with that, go ahead.
All right. Hey, tell us about, what you know of your family origins coming from Laos and into the USA. Your parents, relatives, cousins, grandparents. What do you know?
pretty much, my parents are from Vientiane,
All right.
and yeah, so they came, geez, right when they're like 17 or so, roughly around there. They're
You know what year?
65 now.
Do you
What
know
was
what
that?
year they came? Do you know what year they came? Like 75, 80?
I think they were like 76 or so,
Okay.
77, yeah, somewhere around there.
Cool.
They got sponsors, and then my dad didn't get a sponsor. So he ended up in Hawaii, and then my mom came with her sister. So they ended up in Amarillo, Texas. And the reason why Amarillo is because it's a big refugee area, just because of all the nonprofit programs that help refugees and stuff like that. And there's a really big meat plant here that's, it's called, it was IBP back then. Now it's called Tyson, and it just guaranteed everybody a job, right? So everybody flocked to this Amarillo, Texas area, which is in the panhandle of Texas, of course. But yeah, so that's just kind of how we ended up here. My mom's family is up in Canada right now, so they never came to the States. They ended up staying in Canada. And my dad's side, all the Bannavongs are here. So
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah, my father-in-law worked for 8 years in that IBP plant. So
yeah,
probably right alongside some of your relatives.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I bet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what was your upbringing like there in Amarillo?
It was honestly, it was a lot of survival. Like how our family gets here and it's just you don't speak the language and things of that nature, right? So everything was pushed towards, oh, you need to get an education, you need to get your knowledge up and know how this world functions over here in the States and don't struggle like us. But it was a lot of survival working at a young age. The minute you were allowed to work, I was sacking groceries at United just to make some money for gas and help pay the bills. And that's how me and I have two other siblings, and I'm the youngest out of three. I have two older sisters, and they work like crazy all throughout high school and stuff like that. So it was lots of survival, lots of trying to learn from our parents' perspective how the world worked. And that's not always the easiest just because they weren't brought up in the school system here. So they're just, the survival mindset is not a flourishing mindset. It's hard to grow and hard to achieve things and understand that you can achieve things whenever it comes to just worrying about if the lights are going to be on or if you're going to have enough sticky rice to last for the whole week, right? So that's how it was. Just lots of working, and as far as my dad is just he was renovating houses and things of that nature. So he was trying to teach me that while I was growing up, so I would have a tool to to survive and to make it, right? But that's kind of how it was growing up.
Okay. How did you get into? I'll tell you a little about how I got into it a little bit. My question is, how did you get into fitness and powerlifting? Because again, for me, I got into it because of survival, because of getting my ass kicked and just, you know, people getting picking on me. I was small. It was survival, right? So to me, that's how I got into working out, was just,
Yeah.
you know, protecting myself, getting stronger, getting bigger, so people would leave me alone.
Yeah,
So tell me
absolutely.
your story. Tell me your story. How did you get into powerlifting? How you get into fitness?
As far as me, my ex-brother-in-law was the one that kind of got me into sports. I was quiet, always at home, but he got me into football my eighth grade year. And he actually played football with Low Van Fam.
Wow.
Yeah, so I grew up around Low and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he got me into football, and then I ended up liking it, and I was like, man, like it was kind of cool, but I was getting thrown around, right? I was this little little lost kid playing against all these really big kids, so that motivated me in a sense to be able to start from absolutely nothing and then just work my way up and then get on varsity when I got into high school, and that just kind of how it started, right? It was almost like a forced dive in as far as the fitness game, right? Because you're just trying to get faster, trying to get stronger. And growing up, I never even thought about fitness. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then once I realized that I was able to actually build myself to a certain point, I fell in love with the process. Honestly, I fell in love with it hard, and I was able to start my sophomore year in high school on varsity, and I was like, wow, man, like, just this little skinny Laos kid, and I was able to, stick with something and create my own path, create my own future, right? In a way. And that was my first taste of my ability to control the outcome, right? It wasn't laid out for me. Oh, you're supposed to just grow up and go work at IBP, go cut meat and stuff like that, right? Just to make money and make ends meet. I was able to create a completely different future as far as like the athletes in our family were soccer players from back home and stuff like that. My uncle played tennis, but I was the first football player, and I was the first person that started lifting weights within our family. So it just kind of snowballed from there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Nice.
Awesome. So you're a personal trainer. I mean, before we dig into some of those stuff in the interview, tell us about your job and what you do and what you like about it.
Honestly, like so I went to college for physical therapy is kind of what I went for, right? And as I was in college and I was going through the classes, I was just working out to stay in shape and things of that manner. And then I got a person that approached me randomly and asked if I could help her. And I was like, oh, I was like, I never really thought about that. I was like, yeah, just so I helped her out. And this is when I was 19, right out of high school. Um, and she got some results and she was so ecstatic. And I think that success story, her name is Roxy, actually. That success story actually snowballed everything. And it actually made me change my major to sports and exercise science. And then I went the personal training route because I just fell in love with that process. And that's kind of how I fell into it. I started when I was 19, and it by all means was not the plan. It just kind of happened and I realized that I really loved it. So
No, that's the best type of work, man. Is when you're in love with it and you're passionate about what you do and you're helping people.
yeah,
That.
absolutely.
And I grew up the same way, man. It's just like get a job, make money. What job is going to make you the most money? I don't like it. Don't matter.
Yeah.
Don't care. I don't care.
They're
That's my.
like, be a doctor, right?
It makes me you make a lot of money. You're going to be happy, and that was their thing. There was like it wasn't what you did would make you happy. It was what you did that made you a lot of money. Then that was going to make you happy. And I just think our
Absolutely.
parents saw it different, than
Absolutely.
different than we did. So.
And I think that goes back to that survival mode, right? Like it's not necessarily about the happiness with what you're doing. It's having enough money to try to be happy, right? It's the survival mode for sure.
I mean, and it took me a long time to understand like my parents' viewpoint. Man, they had lost, they had everything and they lost it all, and they were just as confused as us, right? We
Yeah,
thought we were confused.
absolutely.
They were just how are we gonna survive? Yeah, that word, man, you nailed it, man. How are we gonna survive? And well, go get a job, work, and the money
Yeah.
will come. You know, so
It's just so hard to thrive when you're stuck in survival mode. So I'm absolutely grateful that, they figured it out to a point and they got it to where, we could go to public school. And when I went to college, that I was allowed to even pursue personal training, right? Because in reality, like growing up, a lot of times it was like, go be a doctor. You're
yeah.
gonna make you're gonna make the most money. Go be a doctor. How's your grades, right? You need a 4.0 and so forth.
Go
But
be a doctor because that kid over there, the so and so's kid, he's a doctor.
yeah, absolutely,
He
absolutely. No,
graduated straight A's, Cole.
yeah, yeah. Like, why aren't you a doctor? You'd be okay right now,
Why
right?
can't you be like them? Why can't you be like?
But I've seen my parents grow over the years, and they've changed their mindset to happiness and freedom and quality of life, right? And it's so cool to see.
Man, speaking of happiness, man, tell us about some of your mental health struggles and how you got out of it. And again, like this podcast is about adversity. I really love to dig in and share as much as you feel, as much as you're comfortable. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that
so
one's that's a tough one. So I think the hardest thing was, there's a lot of personal trainers that don't make it, right?
uh,
As you go out there, you get these certifications, you get a degree, and then your clientele never builds, right? And then I tried for quite some time. Like I said, I started when I was 19, and then I ended up moving away to Dallas. Some bad things happened there. I failed. I lost my apartment. And it's like, man, like I had to come back home to Amarillo, Texas. I was in Dallas,
was
Texas.
was the move to Dallas because there was more opportunity for training?
I actually got a position at a LA Fitness there as a fitness director,
Okay. Okay.
and it was an overpromised situation. So
Yeah.
when I got there, you're stacked with bills, and you were overpromised things financially that you're not getting, and you're just kind of like, oh no, what do I do, right? So some real bad situations happened. Don't want to name any names, but um, pretty much got kicked out of my apartment at 20, 28 years old. 28 years old, you're getting kicked out of an apartment and you're having to come back to your hometown with 14 cents in your bank account and a car full of your stuff. And and your parents had to come down because you had more stuff, so they had to stuff stuff in their car and help you move out. And at that point in time, I was like, man, I felt good about life. I was like, okay, I'm going down here to do this, this, and that, right? And then boom, it just comes crashing down. And then it's like, man, you come home, and then COVID hits, can't get a job anywhere, right? So right when I got home, COVID hit, and everything was shut down, and I was just I was lucky enough that my sister and her husband have a little Mexican breakfast spot, so they allowed me to go and roll burritos and stuff at their place, and just to make some extra cash during COVID. But that was probably the lowest point in my life, where for the longest time I thought I had it all planned out. Went down there, failed miserably, honestly, and came home with, like I said, a handful of change, nothing in my bank account, and now probably ruined rental history because I got kicked out of the apartment, out of uptown Dallas. And I was just in there rolling burritos. And at that point, I was like, man, you have a degree. I was like, you personal training. I was like, you know what you do, you know what you're doing. But I was just at an all-time low, and I almost didn't understand, like, for the majority of my life, I felt like I knew who I was. I knew who I was. Like, I loved helping people. I knew that I was capable and so forth. And then all of a sudden, you fail so miserably, you don't know who you are anymore, right? And I think that was the lowest point. I got so dark that I literally I texted my sister, I was like, hey, like, I usually don't do this. I was like, but I feel like turning my gun on myself.
Wow.
And, oh man. And that was that was probably the hardest time in my life. Um, and then, like, honestly, talking to my sisters all the time got helped me get me out of it a little bit. But what really, really got it back was, I had a client from way back when, and she messaged me. She's like, I hear you're back in town. And this was during COVID. And I was like, yeah, I am. She's like, do you think you could sneak gym equipment into my little shop after I closed down and train me out of there? And I was like, why not? You know what I mean? I was rolling burritos from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then I would take some kettlebells and stuff that I have, and I would stack it in the car and drive to her shop whenever she shuts down her little shake shop that she owned. And I would train her in there. And that that sparked life again, in a way, right? Like, I was out moving, and I was, like, doing things. I was helping somebody that still believed in me even though I didn't believe in myself, right? And that really pulled me out. And then I got an offer from somebody that I've met for years now, and she got me out to a golf course here in town that they needed a trainer, and she was the director now. And she was like, you're back in town, you're the only person that I really trust. Can you please come out with me? And then so I went out there, and I sat out there for 9 hours a day, no no clients. But after I got two clients, it just snowballed, boom, boom, boom. And now, I mean, 3 years later, I'm booked from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day.
Wow.
And I work 7 days a week. And it's just like, from burritos to that, like, that taught me so much, right? It taught me so much about the resilience and not giving up, but also having the people in your life that actually care, the people in your life that actually matter, and they don't just pull from you. And whenever you're down and out, like, they have, you know, they have the capacity to help pull you out. And I owe it a lot, like I said, to my sisters, to my entire clientele list, to the fitness director that got me out to the golf course and so forth. But yeah, that was the hardest time, the lowest I've ever been. And for the majority of my life, I was, oh, Mr. Positive, right? All my social media posts are positivity and things of that nature. But when I hit it hard, and I was down so low, I didn't know where to go, and yeah, that's that's really hard for me to talk about. But yeah, that was the lowest point in my entire life, honestly.
But what made you decide to reach out to your sister? Like, what was something in your head? Say, I mean,
Yeah, I just my sisters are practically like my best friends,
good.
right?
Yeah.
As we've gotten older, they've become my best friends, and I just felt like I had nobody else to turn to.
Uh-huh.
Like I also knew that like I felt urges to do things, and I was just like, man, like that's not like me, you know? That has never been me. I've always been that person that's like, I don't understand why people have those dark thoughts. I don't understand why people get so deep to where they can't pull themselves out and stuff like that until I was there. And
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, now you know.
Right.
And so once I knew and I caught myself, I was like, it's not getting any better. You know, like it's getting harder and harder. So that's whenever I reached out to my sisters and I was like, hey guys, like it's getting deep. It's getting deep and it's getting hard to stay out of that mindset. And I was just terrified of spiraling, honestly, because I mean, in Texas, everybody has a gun. It's not hard to have a gun, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In Texas, it's completely legal. Everybody has one, and it was just there. And to have a gun and to have those thoughts is just it's such a slippery slope, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what made me reach out. It was like if I felt like I had nobody else, my sisters, have to have me. So
I can laugh about that now, and I'll share this with you guys. Is like I didn't have a gun, I had a knife, right? And you know what I thought? I thought, man, my ex is probably gonna bitch about all the fucking blood in the kitchen floor. Like, fuck killing myself. I'll fucking kill myself. And like, oh, then she's gonna bitch about the fucking mess. I was like, fuck it.
yeah.
But it's just some crazy. It's crazy, man. It's crazy thoughts.
No, it's dark. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
scary.
yeah. And it only takes a second. Yeah, especially with a gun, right? It's like 1 second.
Yep. Yep.
So
So yeah,
we
I felt myself slipping and I was it took a lot, but I had to do something, right?
that's great that you reached out. That's great. You feel comfortable reaching out to your sister. It's just asking for help, right? It's so hard to do, especially with our culture, to ask for help because it's like shame. It's like, oh, you fucking loser. It's like you're worthless.
Oh, you're weak, you're not a man, right?
Yeah.
Right, right. So yeah, so tell that to all the people that have ended their lives.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. And of course, in our culture, it's just so frowned upon, right, to actually go through with it and
Oh
commit
yeah.
suicide.
Oh, there's you're reincarnated into hell or something.
Yeah. So it's just,
Honestly, that probably what knowing that is what probably saved me from really ending my life. Just
yeah.
knowing that I would burn in eternal hell. Man, this really sucks now, but it's really gonna suck if I do this.
No,
It's funny. I
absolutely.
can laugh about it now, man, but no, damn, it was like, it was
It's
dark.
tough.
Yeah. Um,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
So like being,
go ahead,
oh,
Mason.
well, I was, yeah, I mean, just so being on this side of it now, like, it's just even more motivation to help, talk
now,
to people.
now you can help other people that are going through now because you've been there, right?
Yeah,
You didn't,
absolutely.
you didn't study it. You didn't go to school and study with a book. You lived it. So when
Yeah.
someone says, "Man, I'm feeling down," you know what they mean.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm one of those people, like I always try to either lead by example or speak on things that I've had experience on. And if I've never had experience, then I won't give you advice because I don't know. And I'm not that kind of guy, you know. I don't like talking about things I don't know. So
And then especially
it,
personal training. I've always believed in walk in the walk, right? Practice what you preach, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, you obviously you work out, you're fit, you're in shape. I've seen some of your videos and some of those handstands you do. That matters. That matters to people. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. That you live the life that you're trying to tell them to, right?
right?
So
Why are you asking me to do this if you never done it?
exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And with your job, I mean, you train people physically, but what's the connection between physical fitness and nutrition and mental health? Because we try to think of them as different. You got your mental health, your physical health, but I mean, you've probably seen it more than anybody, Mason, right? There's an overlap, right? And they're related.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you want to get scientific with it, right, it's like the stress that people go through in their lives, it raises your cortisol levels and it stops you from building muscle or stops you from burning fat and things like that. So you can see how the mental health side of things is so important, right? And it just all plays into each other. And it's funny because when you get to know your clientele and you get to know each other, you start hearing about, like stress and things like that. So even though you're teaching these people how to get into fitness or teaching them how to get in shape, at the same time, you're almost going to become like a life coach,
Yeah.
right? And you don't plan on being, of such things, but it's just for me, that's why I am grateful that I've had certain experiences in my life because even though some of my clients are older than me, I'm still able to give my logical, viewpoint on certain things that they're going through. And, sometimes that's all it takes to clear some emotions out of the air is just, having an outside logical, viewpoint to help guide you through things. And I do try to guide as logical as possible just because I don't have the emotional ties to these situations. And sometimes that's kind of what a therapist does, right? They don't have the emotional ties to your situation. So they just kind of help guide and, tell you how to not tell you how to think, but guide your brain and just to figure out your problems. And it just kind of goes hand in hand, honestly. The nutrition to fight cortisol, the mental health, talking to each other, easing each other, becoming a safe space for your clients so they can tell you, they'll tell you everything. Whenever you're a trainer and you're not a safe space, they'll tell you that they were on their diet 100%. But in reality, they had McDonald's like 4 days in a row, right? But if they feel safe, they'll be okay telling you like, hey, I messed up, and that's okay. So I think getting to know each other and that all, like I said, that all ties into each other, right? So it's super important to me personally.
Speaking of which, we hear you got a podcast. Tell us a little about that and the name of the podcast, and then what's your mission with all that?
Yeah, so I called it Under the Bar. And the bar, of course, is a barbell, and it's the weight, of course, on your back, and also the weight of life and the weight of the world. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my symbolism for it. And it comes down to mixing, like we said, the world of fitness with mental health. And I like to give, vitamin advice or whatever supplements, and I like to relate, the struggles of, you know, a squat or plateauing and then relate that to something that happens in life. So I just feel like everything's so interchangeable. I use fitness to teach myself how to navigate through my life. And that's kind of how I like to, teach other people, right? The struggles of, us not being able to lift a certain weight and over time doing so, or us hitting a plateau, or us struggling to stay on a diet. It's just all those little life lessons are also ingrained into, something as simple as lifting a piece of metal, right? So I kind of mix the worlds and do lots of mental health things, and just kind of to show a different side because a lot of times when we show things on social media, it's like, oh, macho this, macho that. But there's a whole different side. Like the first time I announced that I had that issue where I felt like taking my own life, everybody was like, what are you talking about, right? You're this positive dude all the time. And I wouldn't even been able to tell. But that's because, we have that facade. And I just kind of use the podcast to let people dive in a little deeper and understand that, hey, everybody's going through it. You know what I mean? Not everybody's, no, we're not all brick walls. Like, and even if we look like a brick wall, we're not. Nobody is, right? And that's kind of my take on it is to hopefully inspire people with my story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and get them to realize that, hey, it's going to be okay. You're not alone. Even some of the most positive people on social media are going through some dark times, and you don't have to feel alone and be afraid to talk about it, right? But yeah, that was probably the first time I ever really opened up and let people in into that emotional side of me, and that's kind of what I'm using it for.
Good. Very nice.
That's great. So it's Under the Bar. It's on Spotify. I know I found it there. Where else, Mason? Is that the main place where it's
Right
at?
now, it's just on Spotify. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So folks, check it out. Under the Bar on Spotify with Mason. Well, Mason, let's say somebody wanted to start their fitness journey, and they're a little hesitant to get going. Maybe they've
Yeah,
been out of the gym for a long time, or they're so out of shape they'd be embarrassed that first time walking in. What advice would you have them to get going?
I say set small, and you're almost gonna feel like they're meaningless, but set very small and very achievable goals, right? Something as simple as I'm going to take my creatine monohydrate every single day before bed, or I'm going to take my vitamins every single day. And I think I say that because our end goal is just a whole like addition and compilation of small, tiny little wins, right?
Yeah.
And whenever we look at the long-term goal too often, we start getting discouraged. And that's what people do whenever they first get into the gym. Is like, I'm gonna get a six pack. Like, hey, let's worry about walking 200 steps first, every day, or 2,000 steps first every day, right? And then I feel like whenever you do that for yourself and you stay on it and you stay on it, because a lot of people, whenever they get through fit or they get into fitness, they're like, I just can't do it. Like, it's just so hard. I just can't do it. Or they get very unmotivated, right? And I think it's because they're so stuck in those negative habits that they feel helpless. But whenever you do things like, I don't know, sleeping at the same time every day or taking your vitamins at the same time every day, something so small like that is a win. And then over time, you do it for, let's say, 3 months, and you're like, oh, like, no, like, I am in control of my life. Like, I'm in control. I said I was going to take these vitamins, and I've taken it for 3 months in a row, and nothing else is stopping me. So as far as like getting started in fitness, just either, get to the gym or do something that is achievable for you. And then after that, you can build upon that. After you took your vitamins for 2 weeks, like, okay, let me throw in 1,000 steps. Boom, do that for another 2 weeks. Okay, let me get to the gym at least twice a week. And then boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, you're a gym junkie, and and you're good to go, and you change your life completely, right? But it's all in the baby steps. Biting off too much at the same time at one time is gonna lead you to failure, honestly, especially if you're not used to it, right? But that's kind of that'd be my advice, is to set yourself baby goals, feel good from those little wins, and then snowball it and just make it steamroll.
I like that little wins, and then building that momentum, right?
Absolutely.
It's discipline. You're teaching them discipline by, you take this at this time, and it's just an act of, it's discipline. It's doing it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Like you
Yeah,
add those little disciplines up. Now you're doing 100 things a day. You start with
yeah.
one thing a day, and 2 things, 10 things, and 20 things, and all of a sudden you get that momentum.
And then you feel like you're in control of your life and nothing's gonna stop you right after after you build up that list. So that's how I see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, if you set the goals too high or the expectations too high, people get discouraged. So I like, there's a saying, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? You got
Exactly.
to start small, you get
Yeah.
some wins, and then you keep challenging yourself and raising the bar, right? And then you'll get there.
Exactly.
You'll get that six pack. You'll get whatever your ultimate long-term goal is.
What's that?
Exactly.
Lao, is it Lao Tzu or something? Like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Yep.
Or is that Confucius? I don't know, either it's
I,
Lao Tzu or I'm
I
like,
don't know,
it's one
honestly.
of those, but I've heard the saying. Yeah.
begins with one step.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
Cool.
Well, man, yeah, we appreciate you coming on and opening up and being so honest, Mason. This
Yeah,
is exactly
man.
the kind of
Well,
story.
thank you guys. I appreciate y'all having me. That was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely loved. I know it was hard for you, man, but people need to know. People need to hear these stories so they aren't alone. Like they're not. I thought I was the only one that thought that. No, there's other. And this guy's so positive, and he thinks that there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe I can be okay. Maybe I can get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
To give people hope, man. That's what I want. It's all we want to give people is hope.
Yeah, and I love that y'all are doing this. It's just getting that that message across that, hey, like you're not alone. Like nobody's alone, you know? Even though we feel like that, and isolation is probably our worst enemy, but
But we all have that main ingredient though is we came from a culture that told us to be alone. We're all trying to break away from that, right? I mean, it's just like, man, don't cry, don't bitch, don't say nothing, keep your mouth shut,
yeah,
and then
it's years and years of
our kids
it.
will ask for help. You know,
Mhm.
we had to break through that, so now we can inspire. Hopefully, the newer generation of Asian, Southeast Asian, Laotian youth to know that they're not alone. They can ask for help. It's okay to talk about things. And
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's
I
just
would never.
like,
I couldn't raise my kids the way my parents raised me. How do you say that to somebody?
yeah, yeah. No, we look back and it's
Yeah,
sad, but at the same time, it's like they didn't know any better
they didn't
either,
know.
you know?
They didn't know, and that's where we had to embrace, understand that they didn't know. Because they were in survival mode themselves.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like we said, survival mode, there's no room for flourishing.
Yeah.
It's just day-to-day survival, and that's all you know, and that's all you will know.
And,
So
and it's cool to have someone as young as you are to come on and be able to talk about that, man. That's really cool. Because usually it's the older guys, like around my age, that are talking about,
yeah,
survival.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but for you to have understand that concept, man.
Yeah, the majority of my life, like I mean, like from 23 on, I stopped. I'm completely sober. I don't drink. I don't do anything, and it just allowed me to really dive deep and think differently, right? And I kind of do like personally work extremely hard on that mental side of things and really trying to be mature because a lot of us can age and doesn't necessarily mean we're grown up, right? I think the mental health and things like that is what determines if we're grown up or not. And I don't think a lot of people are comfortable sitting back and realizing like, oh, I'm this way, or I felt like killing myself because I'm this way, this, and that. And a lot of people aren't comfortable diving that deep. And I kind of made it a point in my life to always do that and try to keep growing, you know? So I do appreciate you saying that though.
But also, man, it's too, like, we're both in physical fitness, right? Or you think it's just physical, but no, there's so much mental. There's so
Yeah.
much psychology behind. It starts with the discipline. That's like, that's psychological.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
little wins and all that. And I just thought it was picking this up and lifting it as hard as I can until my arms dropped, and
And so you realize you're kind of meditating when you're lifting, you know?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of, yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. It's like you're just in a state of like
Right,
meditation.
you're in the zone. It's psychology, man. There's so
Yeah.
much psychology into athletics, into sports. And like, again, this podcast is about athletes, right? But it's also the adversity they had to overcome, right? Their story and stuff, man. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, man, awesome, man. Thank you for coming on, John. You got anything?
Yeah, no, that's a wrap, Mason. We appreciate it, everybody. Again, keep those recommendations coming. We'll put a link to Mason's Instagram and his podcast in the show notes, so be sure to follow him and be sure to check that out. And with that, we are out.
All right,
Thank you so
everybody.
much. Thank you.
The C4 podcast is brought to you by the Lao American Sports Hall of Fame. Visit us on the web at laoamericansports.com, celebrating the first, inspiring the next.